I watched my daughter-in-law hurl a leather suitcase into the lake and drive away without a single glance back. I scrambled to the shore, battling the pull of the muddy bank, and wrestled the soaked suitcase out of the water. My hands were shaking so hard I nearly dropped it. That's when I heard it. A muffled, weak sound coming from inside. "Please, God, don't let it be what I think it is," I whispered, my trembling fingers fumbling with the wet zipper. It was stuck but finally gave way. In that instant, my heart simply stopped. What I saw inside chilled me to the bone in a way I hadn't felt in all my 63 years of life. My name is Alina, but everyone calls me Ellie Whitlock. I'm 63 years old, and I've been living alone since I buried my only child, Marcus, 8 months ago. Our house, nestled by the shore of Lake Juniper in rural Georgia, used to be filled with laughter and memories. Now it felt too large, too quiet. That September afternoon, I was sipping my sweet tea on the back porch when something caught my attention. The silver sedan belonging to Sloane, my daughter-in-law, barreled down the dirt road, kicking up a thick cloud of dust. She was driving like a maniac at an insane speed for that winding road. Something was terribly wrong. I set my mug on the porch railing and squinted to get a better look. Sloane slammed on the brakes right at the lake's edge, the engine still running. She sprang out of the car as if the devil himself was chasing her. Her face was flushed, her hair a mess. She yanked the trunk open so violently I thought she'd rip the door right off its hinges. That's when I saw the suitcase, that brown leather suitcase I'd given her myself the day she married Marcus. To carry your dreams wherever you go. I'd told her then how foolish I'd been. Sloane dragged the bag out. It was heavy. I could tell by the way her body strained, the way her arms trembled. She glanced around, nervous, guilty. I'll never forget that look. "Sloane," I yelled from the porch, but she didn't hear me or pretended not to. She walked to the water's edge. Every step seemed like a struggle, as if she were carrying not just a weight but a terrible burden. She swung the suitcase once, twice, and on the third heave, she launched it into the water. The splash shattered the afternoon silence. The bag floated for a moment before beginning its slow, dreadful descent. Sloane bolted back to the car. The engine roared, the tires squealed on the gravel, and she vanished down the dirt road, leaving nothing behind but swirling dust and a thick silence. I stood paralyzed for a few seconds. What had I just witnessed? Sloane, the suitcase, the lake, the pure desperation in her movements. A shiver ran down my spine despite the afternoon heat. My legs started moving before my mind could fully process what was happening. I ran down the porch steps, across the yard, and onto the muddy bank. The lake was only about 300 ft away. I ran like I hadn't run in years, my knees protested, my chest burned, but I didn't stop. When I reached the shore, I was gasping for breath, my heart hammering against my ribs. The suitcase was still there, floating, slowly sinking. The leather was sewed in, dark and heavy. I waded into the water without hesitation. The lake was cold, much colder than I expected. It reached my knees, then my waist. The bottom mud sucked at my feet. I reached out, grabbed one of the handles, and pulled. It was incredibly heavy. I yanked harder, my arms shaking from the effort. Water splashed into my face, my clothes were completely soaked. Finally, I managed to drag the suitcase toward the bank. That's when I heard the sound. A weak, muffled cry coming from inside the bag. My blood ran cold. No, it couldn't be. "Please, God, don't let it be what I think," I pleaded. I pulled faster, driven by pure panic. I hauled the suitcase onto the wet sand and fell to my knees beside it. My hand sought the zipper. It was jammed, wet, and slightly rusted. My fingers kept slipping. Come on, I muttered through gritted teeth. Tears started to blur my vision. I forced the zipper once, twice. It finally gave way. I lifted the lid and the whole world stopped. My heart stopped beating. The air was trapped in my throat. My hands flew to my mouth to stifle the scream. There, wrapped in a soaked powder blue blanket, was a baby, a newborn, so tiny, so fragile, so still. His lips were blue, his skin pale as wax, his eyes closed. He wasn't moving. Oh my God, no, my hands shook so violently I could barely hold him. I lifted him out of the suitcase with a tenderness I didn't know I still possessed. He was cold, so cold. He weighed less than a bag of sand. His tiny head fit in the palm of my hand. His umbilical cord was still tied off with a piece of ordinary twine. Twine, not a medical clamp, as if someone had done this at home, in secret, without any help. No, I whispered over and over. I pressed my ear to his chest. Silence, nothing. I pressed my cheek against his nose, and then I felt the faintest puff of air, so weak I thought I'd imagined it, but it was there. He was barely breathing, but he was breathing. I scrambled to my feet, clutching the baby to my chest. My legs nearly buckled. I ran toward the house faster than I'd ever run in my life. Water streamed from my clothes. My bare feet were cut and bleeding on the rough path. But I felt no pain, only terror, only urgency, only the desperate need to save the tiny life trembling against me. I burst into the house screaming. I don't know what I was yelling. Maybe help. Maybe Jesus. Maybe nothing coherent. I grabbed the kitchen phone with one hand, holding the baby with the other. I dialed 911. My fingers slipped on the keys. The phone nearly dropped twice. 911, what is your emergency? A calm female voice asked. A baby. I found a baby in the lake. He's not responding. He's cold. He's blue. Please send help. Ma'am, I need you to calm down. Tell me your address. I stammered out my address near Lake Juniper. The operator instructed me to place the baby on a flat surface. I swept everything off the kitchen table with one arm. Dishes, papers, everything crashed to the floor. Nothing mattered. I placed the baby on the table. So small, so fragile, so still. Is he breathing? I shrieked at the operator, my voice a high, unrecognizable sound. You tell me, look at his chest. Is it moving? I looked closely, searching for a nearly imperceptible movement. So subtle I had to lean in to see it. Yes, I think so. Very shallow. Okay, listen closely. I'm going to guide you. I need you to get a clean towel and dry the baby very gently. Then wrap him up to keep him warm. The ambulance is already on the way. I did as I was told. I grabbed towels from the bathroom. I dried his tiny body with clumsy, desperate motions. Every second felt like an eternity. I wrapped the baby tightly in clean towels. I picked him up again, cradling him against my chest. I began to rock him without even realizing it, an ancient instinct I thought I'd forgotten. Hold on, little one, I whispered. Please hold on, they're coming. They're coming to help you. The minutes that followed until the ambulance arrived were the longest of my life. I sat on the kitchen floor with the baby pressed to my chest. I sang. I don't know what I sang. Maybe the same song I used to sing to Marcus when he was small. Maybe just senseless sound. I just needed him to know he wasn't alone. That someone was holding him. That someone wanted him to live. The sirens tore through the silence. Red and white lights flashed through the windows. I ran to the door. 2 paramedics jumped out of the ambulance. An older man with a gray beard and a young woman with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. She took the baby from my arms with an efficiency that broke my heart. She examined him quickly, pulled out a stethoscope, and listened. Her face was emotionless, but I saw her shoulders tense. Severe hypothermia, possible aspiration. She told her partner, we need to move now. They placed him on a small gurney, put an oxygen mask on him. Their hands worked fast, connecting wires, monitors, things I didn't understand. The man looked at me. Are you coming with us? It wasn't a question. I climbed into the ambulance, sinking into the small side seat. I couldn't stop looking at the baby, so tiny amidst all that equipment. The ambulance took off, sirens wailing, the world blurred past the windows. How did you find him? The paramedic asked as she continued working. In a suitcase in the lake, I saw someone throw it in. She looked at me, then at her partner. I saw something in her eyes. Concern, perhaps suspicion, perhaps pity. Did you see who it was? I opened my mouth, then closed it. Sloane, my daughter-in-law, Marcus's widow, the woman who cried at his funeral as if her world had ended. The same woman who had just tried to drown a baby. How could I say that? How could I even believe it myself? Yes, I finally said. I saw who it was. We arrived at the Atlanta Medical Center in less than 15 minutes. The emergency room doors flew open. A dozen people in white and green scrubs swarmed the gurney. They shouted numbers, medical terms, orders. They rushed the baby through a set of double doors. I tried to follow, but a nurse stopped me. Ma'am, you need to stay here. The doctors are working. We need some information. She led me to a waiting room. Cream-colored walls, plastic chairs, the smell of disinfectant. I sat down, shaking from head to toe. I didn't know if it was from the cold of my wet clothes or the shock, probably both. The nurse sat across from me. She was older than the paramedic, maybe my age. Her name tag read Nurse Diane. She had kind wrinkles around her eyes. I'm going to need you to tell me everything that happened, she said softly. I recounted every detail from the moment I saw Sloane's car until I opened the suitcase. Diane took notes on a tablet, nodding, not interrupting. When I finished, she sighed deeply. The police will want to speak with you, she said. This is attempted homicide, maybe worse. Attempted homicide. The words hung in the air like black birds. My daughter-in-law, my son's wife, a murderer. I couldn't process it. I couldn't understand. Diane placed her hand over mine. You did the right thing. You saved a life today, but that wasn't how I felt. It felt like I'd uncovered something terrible, something I couldn't shove back into the darkness, something that would change everything forever. 2 hours passed before a doctor came to speak to me. He was young, maybe 35. He had deep circles under his eyes and hands that smelled of antibacterial soap. The baby is stable. He said he's in the neonatal ICU for now. He suffered severe hypothermia and aspirated water. His lungs are compromised. The next 48 hours are critical. Is he going to live? I asked, my voice broken. I don't know, he said with brutal honesty. We're going to do everything we can. The police arrived half an hour later. 2 officers, a woman in her 40s with her hair pulled back in a tight bun and a younger man taking notes. The woman introduced herself as Detective Sergeant Ava Johnson of the Fulton County Sheriff's Department. She had dark eyes that seemed to look right through lies. They asked me the same questions over and over from different angles. I described the car, the exact time, Sloane's movements, the suitcase, everything. Ava watched me with an intensity that made me feel guilty, even though I'd done nothing wrong. And are you sure it was your daughter-in-law? Completely sure, completely. Why would she do something like that? I don't know. Where is she now? I don't know. When was the last time you spoke with her before today? 3 weeks ago on the anniversary of my son's death. Ava wrote something down. She exchanged a look with her partner. We're going to need you to come to the precinct tomorrow to make a formal statement, and you cannot contact Sloane under any circumstances. Do you understand? I nodded. What was I going to say to her anyway? Why did you try to kill a baby? Why did you throw him in the lake like trash? Why? The officers left. Diane returned with a blanket and a hot cup of tea. You should go home, get some rest, change your clothes. But I couldn't leave. I couldn't leave that baby alone in the hospital. That baby I had held against my chest who had drawn his last breath of hope in my arms. I stayed in the waiting room. Diane brought me dry clothes from the hospital storage, nurse scrubs, and a baggy t-shirt. I changed in the bathroom, looking in the mirror. I looked like I'd aged 10 years in one afternoon. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in that plastic chair watching the clock. Every hour I got up and asked about the baby. The nurses gave me the same answer. Stable, critical, fighting. At 3:00 in the morning, Reverend Thomas, the priest from my church, showed up. Someone must have called him. He sat next to me in silence. He didn't say anything for a long time. He was just there. Sometimes that's all you need, a presence, proof that you're not completely alone in hell. God tests us in many ways, he finally said. This doesn't feel like a test, I replied. It feels like a curse. He nodded. He didn't try to convince me otherwise, and I appreciated that more than any sermon. As the sun began to rise, I knew nothing would ever be the same. I had crossed a line. I had seen something I couldn't unsee. Whatever came next, I would have to face it. Because that baby, that tiny being fighting for every breath in the next room, had become my responsibility. I hadn't chosen this, but I couldn't abandon him either. Not after pulling him from the water, not after feeling his heartbeat against mine. The dawn arrived without me even noticing. Light streamed through the waiting room windows, painting everything in a pale orange glow. I had spent the entire night in that plastic chair. My back ached, my eyes burned, but I couldn't leave. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the suitcase sinking. I saw that still little body. I saw the blue lips. Deanne showed up at 7 in the morning with coffee and a foil-wrapped breakfast sandwich. You need to eat something, she said, placing them in my hands. I wasn't hungry, but I ate anyway because she stood there waiting. The coffee was too hot and burned my tongue. The sandwich tasted like cardboard, but I swallowed. I chewed. I pretended to be a normal person doing normal things on a normal morning. The baby is still stable, Diane said, sitting beside me. His body temperature is rising. His lungs are responding to treatment. That's a good sign. Can I see him? She shook her head. Not yet. Immediate family only. And we don't even know who the family is. Family. The word hit me like a stone. That baby had a family, a mother, Sloane, but she had tried to kill him. So who was the father? Where was he? Why hadn't anyone reported him missing? The questions piled up in my head with no answers. At 9:00, Ava returned. She was alone this time. She sat across from me with a folder in her hands. Her expression was hard, inquisitive. She looked at me as if I were the suspect. Ellie, I need to ask you a few more questions, she said, opening the folder. I already told you everything I know. I know, but some inconsistencies have surfaced. Inconsistencies? The word floated between us like an accusation. I felt my stomach clench. What kind of inconsistencies? Ava took out a photograph and placed it on the small table between us. It was Sloane's car, but it was in a parking lot, not by the lake. This photo was taken by a security camera at a supermarket 30 minutes from here yesterday at 5:20 in the afternoon. 5:20 in the afternoon, 10 minutes after I had supposedly seen her at the lake. Impossible. I looked at the photo more closely. It was her car, license plate and all. But it can't be. There has to be a mistake, I said. I saw her. I was there. I saw her throw the suitcase. You were sure, she said, but my voice sounded less convincing now. Ava leaned forward. Ellie, I need you to be honest with me. What is your relationship with Sloan? Do you get along? And there it was, the real question, the one I'd been waiting for since the police showed up. Because we didn't get along, we never had. From the day Marcus introduced her, I knew something was wrong with her. She was too perfect, too calculating, too interested in the money Marcus earned as an engineer. We're not close, I admitted. Do you blame her for your son's death? What? My voice was too loud, too defensive. It's a simple question. Do you blame Sloan for Marcus's death? The accident? That's what everyone called it. Marcus was driving home after dinner with Sloan. It was raining. The car skidded. It hit a tree. Marcus died instantly. Sloan walked away with minor scratches. It always seemed strange to me. It always seemed convenient, but I never had proof. Just a heartbroken mother looking for someone to blame. I don't see what that has to do with the baby. It has everything to do with it, Ava said, closing the folder, because we haven't been able to locate Sloan. She's vanished. Her house is empty. Her phone is off, and you are the only person who claims to have seen her yesterday. Her words fell on me like ice water. She was accusing me, not directly, but the insinuation was there clear as day. She thought I had made it all up, that I had found the baby some other way and was blaming Sloan out of vengeance. I didn't lie, I said, clenching my jaw. I saw what I saw. Then we need to find Sloan and fast, because if she is this baby's mother, he's in grave danger. And if she's not, then we have an even bigger mystery on our hands. Ava stood up, handing me a card with her number. If you remember anything else, any detail, call me. She walked out, leaving me with more questions than answers. I sat there, the card in my hand, wondering if I was losing my mind. I had seen Sloan. I was sure of it. But now doubt was seeping in like poison. What if I was wrong? What if it was someone else? What if my grief and resentment made me see what I wanted to see? Reverend Thomas came back at noon. He held a rosary in his hands. Shall we pray? He asked. I'm not very religious, I never was, but in that moment I needed something bigger than myself, something to tell me I wasn't alone in this. I nodded. We prayed together quietly. The familiar words calmed me, even if I didn't understand how it worked. When we finished, I felt a little less broken. The police think I'm lying, I confided. The truth always comes out, he replied, even if it takes time. But we didn't have time. That baby was fighting for his life, and somewhere Sloan was hiding or running or planning her next move. At 3:00 in the afternoon, a different doctor came to see me, an older woman this time with thick glasses and a serious expression. We need your authorization to run some tests on the baby, she said. I'm not family. We know, but you are the only responsible party. Child Protective Services is on the way, but in the meantime, we need to act. The baby needs blood work. We need to know if he has any medical conditions, if he was exposed to drugs, if he has injuries we haven't detected. I signed the papers. I didn't even read them completely. I just wanted them to do whatever was necessary to save him. 2 hours later, the social worker showed up. Marcy was young, too young for that job, I thought. Maybe 25, short hair, a gray suit, a professional smile that didn't reach her eyes. Miss Whitlock, she said, sitting beside me, I need to ask you some questions about your situation. I understand you found the baby. The story again, the questions again, but Marcy was different. She didn't look at me with suspicion. She looked at me with pity, which was somehow worse. Do you live alone? She asked. Yes. Do you have a stable income? I have my late husband's pension and some savings. Criminal record, no mental health issues, depression, anxiety. I hesitated. After Marcus died, I took antidepressants for 3 months. My doctor said it was normal that grief sometimes needs chemical help. I stopped when I started feeling better. I had depression after my son's death. I admitted, but it's past. Marcy wrote something down. I couldn't see what the baby is going to need a temporary home when he's released from the hospital. She said if he is released, CPS will look for certified foster families. In the meantime, he will remain in state custody. State custody. Those words broke something inside me. That baby I had held against my chest, who had breathed his first breath of life in my arms, would be handed over to strangers, to a system, to people who would see him as just another file, just another number. What if I wanted to? The words came out before I could stop them. What if I wanted to care for him? Marcy looked at me, surprised, then skeptical. Ms. Whitlock, you are 63 years old. You are not a certified foster parent. You have no legal relationship with the baby, and you are involved in an active criminal investigation. I didn't do anything wrong. I saved his life. I know, but the system has protocols. The best interest of the child comes first. And frankly, your age and your recent emotional situation are factors we have to consider. I felt like I'd been slapped. Too old, too unstable, too broken. Maybe she was right. Maybe it was crazy to even think it. But when I closed my eyes, all I saw was that fragile little body, and I knew no one else in the world would love him like I could. That night, I went home for the first time in 36 hours. Diane convinced me. She said I needed to shower, sleep in a real bed, that the baby would be fine, and they would call if anything changed. I drove home as the sun was setting. The lake glittered on my right. I stopped in the exact spot where I had seen Sloan, where I had pulled out the suitcase. I got out of the car, walking to the bank. The suitcase was gone. The police had taken it as evidence, but I could see exactly where it had been. I could see my own footprints in the dried mud. I stood there as darkness fell, wondering if I would ever know the truth, wondering if Sloan was watching from somewhere, wondering what the hell had really happened. And then my phone rang. It was the hospital. My heart stopped. Miss Whitlock, Diane's voice said, "You need to come back now." I drove back to the hospital, ignoring every speed limit sign. My hands trembled on the steering wheel. My heart pounded so loudly I could hear it over the engine. Diane hadn't given me any details over the phone, just said, "Come back now." Those 3 words were enough to fill my head with the worst possible scenarios. The baby had died. That had to be it. Why else would they call with such urgency? He had fought for 2 days, and finally his tiny body had given out. I hadn't been fast enough. I parked haphazardly, taking up 2 spots. I ran toward the emergency doors. Diane was waiting for me at the entrance. Her expression was serious. But there was something else, something I couldn't decipher. "He's alive," she said immediately, as if she knew exactly what I was thinking. "The baby is alive, but you have to come with me." She led me down hallways I didn't know. We took an elevator to the 3rd floor, past the NICU, and kept walking. Finally, we reached a small conference room. Inside were Detective Ava, Marcy, the social worker, and a man I didn't recognize. He was older, maybe 60. He wore a dark suit and glasses. He had the face of a lawyer. "Please sit down," Ava said, pointing to a chair. I sat. My legs felt like jello. Everyone looked at me with an intensity that made me want to run. "We received the results of the baby's DNA analysis," Ava said. Her words dropped like stones into quiet water. DNA. I didn't understand why they had done that. What were they looking for? And I asked when the silence became unbearable. Ava exchanged a look with the man in the suit. He nodded, opened a folder, and pulled out several printed sheets. He placed them in front of me. "The baby is a boy. He was born approximately 3 days ago, according to medical exams." Ava paused. "And Ellie, he is your grandson." The world stopped. The words made no sense. I heard them, but my brain refused to process them. My grandson, impossible. Marcus died 8 months ago. He didn't leave any children, no pregnancy, nothing. "That's impossible," I whispered. "The results are conclusive," the man in the suit said. "I'm Dr. Ernest Sodto, a specialist in forensic genetics. We ran the tests twice to be sure. The baby shares approximately 25% of his DNA with you. He is definitively your biological grandson, Marcus' son." Marcus' son? My Marcus. I felt like someone had hit me in the chest with a hammer. Marcus had a son he never knew. A son someone had tried to drown in a lake. But how? My voice sounded distant. "Marcus died 8 months ago. Sloan never said anything about a pregnancy." "Exactly," Ava said, leaning forward. "Sloan was pregnant at the time of the accident. According to our calculations, she conceived about a month before Marcus' death, which means she knew. The room was spinning. Sloan knew she was pregnant when Marcus died. Why didn't she say anything? Why did she hide the pregnancy for 9 months? Why did she give birth in secret and then try to kill her own child? "I don't understand," I said. Tears were starting to blur my vision. "Why would she do that? He's her son, Marcus's son. That's what we have to find out," Ava said. "But there's more, Ellie. I need you to listen very carefully to what I'm about to tell you." I braced myself. I didn't know for what, but I knew what was coming would be worse. "We've been investigating your son's accident, and there are inconsistencies. Major inconsistencies." "What kind of inconsistencies?" "Marcus' car was examined after the accident. The official report said it was a skid due to rain, but we requested a new review. They found evidence of manipulation in the brakes. Someone sabotaged them." The word dropped like a bomb. Sabotage, murder. My son hadn't died in an accident, he had been murdered. Sloan, I said it wasn't a question, she's our primary suspect. Ava admitted. But we need proof and we need to find her. She's completely disappeared. She hasn't used her phone, she hasn't touched her bank accounts. It's like she vanished into thin air. I got up from the chair, I needed to move. I needed air. I walked to the window. Outside, the city glittered with millions of lights. Normal life, normal people, while I was trapped in this nightmare. My son, I whispered against the glass, my baby, she killed him. No one responded, there was nothing to say. I felt a hand on my shoulder, it was Marcy. There's one more thing you need to know, she said softly. About the baby, about his future. I turned around. Her eyes were kind but sad. Given that the baby is your biological grandson, you have legal rights. You can apply for custody. She held up a hand before I could speak. It will be a long process. There will be evaluations, home visits, and psychological interviews. And in the meantime, the baby will remain in state care. No, the word came out as a roar. You're not going to take him from me. He's all I have left of Marcus. He's my grandson, my blood. I understand, Marcy said. Believe me, I do. But the system has protocols, and after everything that happened, we have to make sure the baby is safe. He'll be safer with me than with any stranger, perhaps. But that decision is not up to me. It's up to a judge and the child's well-being. Dr. Sadto spoke for the first time since his initial revelation. There's another factor we must consider. The baby suffered severe trauma, hypothermia, near drowning. The next few weeks will be critical for his development. He will need specialized care, therapy, constant medical monitoring. I'll do whatever it takes, I said. Whatever, Ava stood up. Ellie, I need you to understand one thing. You are not a suspect. We believe your story, but you also can't simply keep the baby because he's your grandson. There is a legal process. And in the meantime, our priority is finding Sloan. We need your help. How? Think, Sloan. Did she ever mention any special place, any property, any friend or relative she might be hiding with? I closed my eyes. I thought about all the conversations I'd had with Sloan during the 3 years she was married to Marcus. They were few and superficial. She never talked about her family. She never mentioned her past. It was as if she had sprung from nowhere the day she met Marcus. She has an aunt, I suddenly said. Up north near the border. Marcus mentioned it once. He said Sloan grew up with her in a place called Tucson. Ava quickly wrote it down. Name, I don't know, Marcus never said. It's a start. Ava said, we'll investigate. Everyone left except Diane. She stayed with me in that cold, empty conference room. Do you want to see your grandson? She asked. I nodded, unable to speak. She led me through security doors to the NICU. She made me wash my hands, put on a sterile gown. Then she guided me to an incubator in the corner. And there he was, my grandson, Marcus's son. So small, so fragile, connected to tubes and wires, but alive, breathing, fighting. He had Marcus's dark hair, Marcus's nose, Marcus' long fingers. Can I touch him? I whispered. Yes, just be gentle. I extended my hand through the opening in the incubator. I touched his tiny hand. It was so soft, so warm. His small fingers closed around my index finger, a reflex, but it felt like a promise. Hello, little one, I whispered. I'm your grandma, and I promise I'm going to protect you. No one will ever hurt you again. I swear it on your father's memory. Diane put her hand on my shoulder. He needs a name, she said softly, for the hospital records until we find the mother or until a judge decides on a name. Marcus had wanted to name his first son Elijah after my father. He told me once during a Christmas dinner, if I have a son, I'll call him Elijah. Elijah, I said. His name is Elijah. I stayed there all night, sitting next to the incubator, holding his hand, singing him the songs I used to sing to Marcus, promising him a future I didn't know if I could give him, but promising it anyway. Because now I knew the truth. This baby was not a stranger I had found by chance. He was my blood, my family, all that was left of my murdered son. And I wasn't going to let anyone take him away from me. Not the system, not Sloan, nobody. The following days were a bureaucratic nightmare. I woke up every morning at 5. I showered, dressed, and drove to the hospital. I spent the day next to Elijah's incubator, and in the afternoon the visits began. Lawyers, social workers, police, all with folders, all with questions, all deciding if I was good enough to raise my own grandson. Marcy showed up on the 3rd day with a list of requirements. She read it in a monotonous voice, as if reciting an appliance manual. You will need a criminal background check, a complete psychological evaluation, a medical exam, income verification, a home inspection, personal references from at least 3 non-family members, and you have to complete a 40-hour childcare course. 40 hours. As if I hadn't raised a child to adulthood. As if I didn't know how to change a diaper or mix formula. But I didn't say anything. I just nodded and took the paper she handed me. How long will all this take? I asked. If you're lucky, 6 weeks, if not 3 months. 3 months. Elijah would be in foster care for 3 months while I jumped through bureaucratic hoops to prove I deserved to raise him. And what about him in the meantime? When he's released from the hospital, he will go to a certified temporary foster family. He will receive proper care. You will be allowed to visit him twice a week under supervision. Twice a week under supervision, as if I were a threat, as if I wasn't the person who saved him from drowning. That night, I called Reverend Thomas. I needed references. I needed people to say I wasn't crazy, that I was capable, that I could do this. He came to my house the next day. He sat in my kitchen drinking the same tea I used to make for Marcus when he was a child. Of course, I'll help you, he said. You're one of the strongest women I know. This child is lucky to have you. I didn't feel strong. I felt old, tired, scared. I was 63 years old. How was I going to chase a 2-year-old when I was 65? How was I going to help him with homework when I was 70? How would I be at his graduation if I made it to 80? I'm too old for this, I said out loud for the first time. Reverend Thomas looked at me over his cup. Sarah was 90 when she gave birth to Isaac. Age is just a number when there's love involved. I wanted to believe him. I really did. On the 4th day, Diane taught me how to care for Elijah, how to support his tiny head, how to change his miniature diapers, how to prepare the formula to the exact temperature. My hands trembled at first. I had forgotten how fragile newborns are, how dependent, how terrifyingly delicate. You're doing great, Diane said every time I panicked. But it didn't feel great. It felt like walking on thin ice. One false move and everything would crash down. On the 5th day, Ava returned with news. We found Sloane's aunt, she said. She lives in a small town 60 mi from the border near Tucson. We went to interview her and she says she hasn't seen Sloane in 2 years. She says they had a fight. Sloane owed her money, $3,000, money. It always came back to money with Sloane. Marcus earned a good salary as an engineer, $7,000 a month. He had savings. He had a $200,000 life insurance policy. Sloane was the beneficiary. Did she receive the insurance? I asked. Ava nodded. 4 months ago, $200,000 deposited into her account. 2 weeks later, she transferred everything to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. We're trying to trace it, but it's complicated. $200,000, the value of my son's life, and she had hidden it in some tax haven while planning to kill his baby. Why? I asked the question that tormented me every night. Why kill the baby? She could have given him up for adoption. She could have left him at a hospital. Why try to drown him? Ava was silent for a long moment. We have a theory, she finally said. We were looking into Marcus' finances. We found something interesting. 2 weeks before he died, he changed his will. He left everything to his future children, not to Sloane, to his children. The air left my lungs. Marcus knew. Somehow he knew Sloane was pregnant and he changed his will to protect his son. She killed him for money, I whispered. We believe so. And then she discovered the money would go to the baby if he was born alive, so she decided to eliminate him too. The pure malice of it left me speechless. She had killed my son. She had carried the pregnancy to term. She had given birth alone. And then she had tried to drown her own baby, all for money. Do you have enough to arrest her? When we find her, yes, but she's still missing. She's smart. She knows we're looking for her. Days turned into weeks. Elijah grew stronger. The doctors removed the tubes one by one. He started breathing on his own, feeding on his own, crying with strong, healthy lungs. It was a medical miracle. According to the doctors, no baby who had gone through what he had should be progressing so well. But I knew it was more than medicine. It was willpower. It was Marcus' spirit living in that tiny body, fighting, surviving, refusing to give up. I completed all the requirements. The background check came back clean. The medical exam showed I was healthy for my age. The psychological evaluation was the hardest. A young woman with glasses asked me questions for 3 hours. How did you cope with your son's death? How do you feel about Sloane? Are you trying to replace Marcus with this baby? That last question stung. I'm not replacing anyone, I said. I'm saving my grandson. It's different. She wrote something down. I didn't know if it was good or bad. The home inspection was humiliating. 2 women checked every corner. They opened closets, checked the refrigerator, measured the windows to see if they were secure. They counted the smoke detectors. They asked about my emergency fire plan. You'll need a certified crib, a changing table, safety gates on all stairways, cabinet locks, outlet covers. I spent $800 I didn't have on baby stuff. My pension barely covered my basic expenses. I had to use my savings, but I didn't care. Elijah was worth it. The child care course was the worst. 15 young mothers in me. They all looked at me as if I were the confused grandmother who had wandered into the wrong class. The instructor was 25. She explained things I already knew with insulting slowness. Bobbies need to eat every 3 hours. Bobbies cry when they're hungry or wet. Never shake a baby. I nodded and took notes. Even though I wanted to scream that I had raised a child to adulthood, that I knew exactly what I was doing. But I needed that certificate, so I swallowed my pride and pretended to learn. 6 weeks after finding Elijah in the lake, Marcy showed up at the hospital with a small smile. "You've completed all the requirements," she said. "The judge will review your case next week. If all goes well, you could have temporary custody in 2 weeks. 2 weeks. After 42 days of bureaucratic hell, I could finally take my grandson home. But that same night, when everything seemed to be improving, my phone rang. It was Ava. Her voice was tense. "Ellie, I need you to come to the precinct now. We found something about Marcus you need to see." I arrived at the precinct with a knot in my stomach. Ava was waiting for me at the entrance. Her face was more serious than usual. She led me down narrow hallways to an interrogation room. On the table was a cardboard box. Inside, I recognized Marcus' belongings. His wallet, his watch, his broken phone, the things they gave me back after the accident. "What is this?" I asked. "We finally managed to unlock his phone," Ava said. "Our technician worked on it for weeks and we found something." She took out a manila envelope, opened it, and spread several printed sheets on the table. There were screenshots of text messages between Marcus and Sloan dated 2 weeks before his death. I read the first one. It was from Marcus to Sloan. "We need to talk. Found out about the baby." Sloan's response: "I don't know what you're talking about." Marcus again: "I found the pregnancy test in the bathroom. Why didn't you tell me?" A 3-hour silence, then Sloan: "I wasn't ready to tell you. I was scared." "Scared of what?" "I'm your husband. We're going to be parents. This is wonderful." Another silence. "Then I don't want to have it. I want to travel live, not be tied down to a baby. It's our son. It's not a mistake." "Don't say that, please. We can make it work. I'll help you. My mother will help us. I don't want help. I want my life back." The messages became more intense. Marcus pleading, Sloan resisting. Until I reached the last exchange, the day before the accident. "Sloan, I spoke with a lawyer. If you decide not to have the baby, I'm divorcing you. And if you have it and don't want to raise it, I'll fight for full custody. I'm not going to let you hurt my son." "Marcus, you're going to regret this." "Sloan, is that a threat?" There was no reply. The next day, Marcus was dead. I let the papers fall. Tears streamed down my face uncontrollably. "She killed him," I said. "She killed him because he was going to protect the baby." "That's what we believe," Ava said, "and there's more." We checked Sloan's phone records from that week. She made 3 calls to an independent mechanic, Calvin Jones. We brought him in for questioning. And what did he say? Nothing at first, but when we showed him evidence of the bank transfers Sloan made to him, $2,000 the day before the accident, he started talking. He admitted she paid him to sabotage Marcus' car brakes. I felt sick. I had to sit down. Sloan had planned everything. She had hired someone to kill my son and made it look like an accident. Why would Calvin do something like that? Debts. He gambled. He owed $15,000 to dangerous people. Sloan offered him $2,000 right away and $3,000 more later. He took it. He's arrested now as an accomplice to murder. And Sloan, we have a warrant for her arrest for first-degree murder and attempted homicide, but we still haven't found her. She's like a ghost. I sat in that cold room processing everything. My son had died trying to protect his baby, and that baby was now in the hospital fighting for his life because his own mother had tried to kill him too. The cruelty of it all was unbearable. "What happens now?" I asked. "We keep looking. We have her photo at every airport, every border crossing, alerts at hospitals in case she tries to change her appearance. Someone will recognize her eventually. No one disappears forever." But I wasn't so sure. Sloan had proven to be smarter and colder than I ever imagined. If she had planned Marcus' murder in such detail, she probably had an equally elaborate escape plan. I went back to the hospital that night. I sat beside Elijah's incubator. I watched him sleep, so innocent, so oblivious to the horror surrounding him. His very existence had cost his father his life. His mother had tried to kill him, and I was all that stood between him and a system that would see him as just another file. "Your daddy loved you," I whispered to him. "He died protecting you. I'm going to finish what he started, I promise." Deanne showed up with coffee. She sat next to me in silence for a while. "I heard about the messages," she finally said. "I'm so sorry." "I didn't know Marcus could be so strong," I said. He was always gentle, kind-hearted, but in those messages he was a warrior ready to fight for his son. "Love does that," she said. "It makes you stronger than you ever thought possible." She was right. I was feeling it myself. I never considered myself particularly strong, but now I was fighting the system, fighting against time, fighting against a fugitive killer, all for this baby. The following days were about preparation. I converted Marcus' room into a room for Elijah. I took down the rock band posters, the football trophies, the college photos. I painted the walls a soft yellow. I assembled the new crib, the changing table, the musical mobile that played lullabies. It was painful to dismantle my son's sanctuary, but it was necessary. Marcus was gone. Elijah was alive, and he needed a space to grow. Reverend Thomas came to bless the room. He sprinkled holy water in the corners. He prayed for Elijah's protection, for my strength, for justice for Marcus. "God has a plan," he said, "even if we don't always understand it." "What kind of plan involves killing a good man and nearly drowning a baby?" I asked bitterly. "The kind of plan that turns evil into redemption." "Sloan wanted to destroy this family, but look, Marcus left a legacy. You found a new purpose. This baby survived against all odds. Evil didn't win. Love won. I wanted to believe him. Some days I could. Other days all I saw was darkness." The court hearing was scheduled for a Tuesday. I wore my best suit, the same one I wore to Marcus's funeral. Marcy accompanied me. We walked into a small courtroom. The judge was a woman in her 50s, gray hair pulled back, a severe expression but not without kindness. She reviewed all my documents. The certificates, the references, the evaluations, the home inspection report. She read every page with meticulous attention. Finally, she looked up. "Miss Whitlock," she said, "I have reviewed your case carefully. It is highly unusual, a 63-year-old woman applying for custody of a newborn. But it is also unusual for a grandmother to save her grandson from drowning." My heart pounded so hard I was sure everyone could hear it. "I have spoken with the hospital, with the social workers, with your references, and they all say the same thing, that you are dedicated, loving, capable, and that this baby was lucky you were there that day." Tears started to well up, but I held them back. I have also read about the criminal case, about the suspicion that the baby's mother murdered the father and then tried to kill the baby. It is horrific, unthinkable. This child needs stability. He needs love. He needs someone to protect him. A long, endless pause. Therefore, I am granting temporary custody to Eleanor Whitlock for a period of 6 months. During that time, there will be monthly visits from Child Protective Services, progress evaluations, and at the end of the 6 months, we will review whether custody becomes gavel struck, and suddenly I could breathe again. I cried right there in the courtroom. I cried from relief, from gratitude, from fear, from everything. Marcy hugged me. "You did it," she whispered. "Against all odds, you did it. You get to take him home." 3 days later, 6 weeks after pulling him from the lake, I took Elijah home. Diane helped me buckle him into the car seat. She explained everything again, how to hold him, how to feed him, how to notice signs of trouble. "He's going to be fine," she said, "and I'm just a phone call away if you need me." I drove home at 12 mph. Every bump terrified me. Every car that passed my house slowly made me nervous, but we arrived safely. I walked into the house with Elijah in my arms, took him to his room, and put him in the crib. He looked so small in that space, so vulnerable, but he was breathing. He was alive. He was safe for now. The first few weeks with Elijah at home were the hardest of my life. I had forgotten how exhausting it is to care for a newborn. The sleepless nights, the inexplicable crying, the constant panic that I was doing something wrong. At 30, I had raised Marcus with youthful energy. At 63, every sleepless night left me shattered. But there were also moments of pure magic, when Elijah held my finger with his tiny hand. When he stopped crying at the sound of my voice, when he opened those small, dark eyes identical to Marcus, and looked at me as if I were his whole world. In those moments, I knew every second of exhaustion was worth it. Deanne came 3 times a week. She taught me tricks I had forgotten. How to burp him more easily, how to swaddle him tightly so he'd sleep better, how to interpret his different cries. She became more than a nurse. She became a friend, a lifesaver. "You're doing an incredible job," she always told me, but I didn't feel incredible. I felt terrified. Every strange noise in the night made me jump. Every car that passed my house slowly made me nervous. Sloane was still out there somewhere. And even though the police said she had probably fled the country, I couldn't shake the feeling that she was close, watching, waiting. I installed new deadbolts on all the doors, security cameras on the porch, an alarm system connected directly to the police. I spent another $800 I didn't have, but Elijah's safety was priceless. One night, 3 weeks after bringing him home, I found something. I was organizing Marcus things that I had stored in boxes, his clothes, his books, his papers. At the bottom of a box, I found a worn brown leather journal. I didn't know Marcus kept a journal. I opened it with trembling hands. The first few pages were from years ago, thoughts about his work, about his friends, nothing important. But then I got to the entries from the last year, the year he met Sloane. I met someone today, read an entry from 4 years ago. Her name is Sloane. She's beautiful, smart, mysterious. There's something about her I can't quite figure out. She intrigues me. I kept reading. The entries about Sloane became more and more frequent. Marcus was in love, completely captivated, but there were also doubts. Sometimes I feel like I don't really know her. She never talks about her family. When I ask, she changes the subject. It's like her life began the day we met. Another entry. I caught Sloane looking through my bank statements. She said she was just curious, but something felt wrong. Why would she look at that without asking first? And then the one that chilled my blood. Dated 1 month before his death. Sloane is pregnant. I found the test, but when I confronted her, she was furious. She said she doesn't want to have it, that it will ruin her life. How can she say that? It's our son. I changed my will today. Everything goes to the baby. I don't trust Sloane with the money. Not after seeing how she spends $500 shoes, $1,000 bags. She always wants more. But a baby is not an accessory. It's a life. And I'm going to protect it at all costs. The last entry was from the day he died. Sloane threatened me today. She said I would regret pressuring her about the baby. I don't know what that means, but it scares me. I'm going to talk to Mom tomorrow. Tell her everything. Maybe she can help me figure out what to do. I just know I can't let Sloane hurt our son. I will protect him always. He never had a chance to talk to me. He died that night, and I never knew he needed help, that he was scared, that he had seen the danger approaching, but not fast enough. I'm sorry, I whispered to the journal. I am so sorry, my love. I should have known. I should have seen that something was wrong, but I couldn't change the past. I could only protect the future. I took the journal to Ava the next day. She read everything. Her jaw tightened with every page. This is crucial evidence, PA, she said. It shows premeditation. It shows motive. When we find Sloane, this will bury her. When are you going to find her? I asked. It's been almost 2 months. We're doing everything we can, but she's smart. She probably used fake documents to leave the country. She could be anywhere. But 3 days later, everything changed. I was feeding Elijah when my phone rang. It was an unknown number. Normally, I wouldn't answer, but something made me do it. Hello, I said. Silence, breathing, then a voice I recognized immediately. Ellie, it's Sloane. My blood ran cold. I almost dropped Elijah. I looked around the room as if she might be hiding in the shadows. Where are you? I managed to say. It doesn't matter where I am. What matters is that I have something you want and you have something I want. You have nothing I want. I have the truth about what really happened to Marcus, about why I did what I did. I bet you want to know. I already know the truth. I read Marcus's journal. I know you killed him for money. I know you're a monster. A cold, humorless laugh, a monster. How dramatic. You don't know anything, Ellie. Marcus wasn't the saint you think he was. Don't you dare. I roared, don't you dare speak ill of my son. Fine, you're going to call the police. Go ahead. By the time you hang up this call, I'll be gone. I use burner phones. I'm not stupid. My mind raced. I had to keep her talking. I had to record this somehow. I put the phone on speaker. I grabbed my cell with my free hand. I started recording. What do you want, Sloane? I want my son, your son. You tried to drown him. It was a mistake, a moment of madness. I was scared. I was confused. I had just given birth alone. I didn't know what I was doing. But I'm better now. I want my baby back, never, over my dead body. That can be arranged, she said with chilling calmness. Listen closely. I want Elijah. And I want Marcus, will money, the $200,000 from the insurance plus everything Marcus left in a fund for the baby. That's another $300,000. $500,000 total. $500,000. Everything Marcus had worked for, everything he had saved, all meant for his son. And if I refuse, then I'll come looking for him. I'm his biological mother. Legally, I have more rights than you. And when they finally catch me, I'll say, you stole my baby, that you threatened me, that you made up the whole Lake story to keep him. My word against yours, and I'm much younger, more credible, more sympathetic. I felt dizzy, but I kept recording. How do I know you won't just kill both of us and take everything anyway? You don't, but it's your only option. Bring the baby and the money to the old boathouse by the lake. You know, the one where you and Marcus used to fish. Tomorrow at midnight alone. If I see any cops, I disappear and you'll never see me again. And eventually I'll find a way to take Elijah from you anyway. Sloan, wait. But the line was already dead. I stood there trembling with Elijah in one arm and the phone in the other. I had the recording. I had evidence that Sloan was alive, that she had threatened me. I called Ava immediately. I sent her the audio. Perfect. She said, it's exactly what we needed. Now we're going to set a trap. You go to that meeting, but we'll be there hidden waiting, and when she shows up, we'll grab her. What if something goes wrong? What if she sees the police and runs again? She won't see us, I promise. I'll have snipers positioned, teams in the shadows. She won't get away this time. And Elijah. Elijah stays with Diane in a safe place. You're not taking him. You're just pretending to bring him. I nodded even though she couldn't see me. One more day, I just needed to survive. One more day. And then Sloan would finally face justice for Marcus, for Elijah, for all the pain she had caused. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed awake watching Elijah sleep, memorizing every detail of his face just in case something went wrong. Just in case I never saw him again. Your daddy loved you, I whispered to him, and I love you. And tomorrow we're going to make sure you're safe forever. The next day passed in slow motion. Every minute felt like an hour, every hour an eternity. At 9 a.m, Diane came to get Elijah. I packed his bag as if he were going to be gone for a week, even though I hoped to have him back in a few hours. Diapers, formula, extra clothes, his favorite blanket. My hands shook as I placed each item in the bag. He'll be perfectly fine with me, Diane said, taking Elijah in her arms. I have your number, the police have my address. No one is going to touch him, I promise. I kissed Diane on the forehead, then I kissed Elijah. His soft skin smelled of baby lotion and hope. I love you, little one, I whispered. Grandma will be back soon. I watched them leave. Diane's car disappeared down the street, and I felt like a piece of my soul was being torn away, but it was necessary. Elijah had to be far away, safe, just in case things went wrong. Ava arrived at 2:00 in the afternoon with 3 other officers, 2 men and a woman, all in plain clothes, all armed. They turned my living room into a command center with laptops, radios, and maps of the area around the boathouse. Let's go over the plan again, Ava said, spreading a map on my dining room table. The boathouse is here, abandoned 5 years ago. It has 3 entrances, main, side, and rear. We'll have teams covering all 3. She pointed to locations on the map with a red marker, snipers here and here on the roofs of the adjacent buildings. They'll have a clear view of the interior through the broken windows. Assault teams back here, ready to enter the moment we have visual confirmation of Sloan. And what exactly am I supposed to do? I asked. My voice sounded calmer than I felt. You go in, you talk to her, you keep her talking. We need her to confess, to admit she killed Marcus, to admit she tried to kill Elijah. You'll be wearing a hidden microphone. We'll record everything. One of the officers, a tall man in his 30s, took out a small button-sized device. This goes on your clothes right here. He pointed just below my collarbone. It transmits everything in real time. It also has a panic button. If you press it 3 times in a row, we enter immediately, no matter what. He showed me how it worked. I practiced pressing it 3 quick taps. My life would depend on remembering that. And if she asks to see the baby, you tell her he's in the car. That you want to talk first, that you want to understand why she did what she did. Appeal to her ego. People like Sloan love to talk about themselves. Let her boast about how smart she was. We spent the next few hours reviewing every detail, every possible scenario, what to do if Sloan was armed, what to do if she wasn't alone, what to do if something went wrong. My head was spinning with information. At 8:00 at night, they made me eat a ham sandwich that tasted like cardboard, but I swallowed every bite. I needed energy. I needed to be alert. At 10:00 at night, they put the microphone on me. They tested the audio repeatedly. They made me say phrases, count to 10, shout, whisper, making sure everything worked perfectly. Remember, Ava said, looking me in the eyes, you are not alone in there. I will be listening to every word. The team will be just feet away. At the slightest sign of real danger, we go in. I won't let anything happen to you. I nodded. I wanted to believe her, but fear was a cold snake coiled in my stomach. At 11:15 at night, we left. I drove my own car. Ava was in the passenger seat, crouched down so as not to be seen from outside. The other teams are already positioned, she informed me over the radio. snipers in position, rear team ready, perimeter secured. We arrived at the boathouse at 11:40 at night. It was exactly as I remembered. Old, dilapidated, broken windows, walls covered in graffiti. Marcus and I used to come here when he was a boy. We'd fish off the dock behind it. Simpler times, happier times. Ava got out of the car in a blind spot from Sloane's imaginary cameras. She disappeared into the shadows. I was alone. I looked at the clock. 11:55 at night, 5 minutes. I closed my eyes. I thought about Marcus, about his smile, about how he called me mama in that loving tone, about what it would have been like to see him as a father. I thought about Elijah, about his future, about all the things he deserved to have. A life without fear, without threats, without shadows. Midnight. My phone vibrated. A text from an unknown number. Go in alone now. I got out of the car. The night air was cold. I could see my breath. I walked toward the Botus's main door. Every step sounded too loud in the silence. The door was ajar. I pushed it. It creaked. The sound echoed in the empty walls. Inside it was dark, almost completely black. Only a little moonlight filtered through the broken windows, creating strange shadows. Sloane, I called out. My voice sounded small, scared. Close the door, a voice said from the shadows. Sloane's voice. I closed the door. My eyes slowly adjusted to the darkness. And then I saw her standing in the center of the boathouse. She was wearing dark clothes, black jeans, a hooded sweatshirt. She looked different, thinner. Her hair was short, dyed blonde, but it was her. You came, she said. She seemed almost surprised. You said you wanted to talk. I said I wanted my son and the money. Where are they? I want answers first. I want to know why. Why did you kill Marcus? Why did you try to kill Elijah? She laughed. That same cold sound I'd heard on the phone. Why do you think, Ellie? For the money. Marcus was a foolish. He talked about love and family and the future. I wanted freedom. I wanted to travel live, not be tied down to a house and a crying baby. Then why did you marry him? Because he was an engineer. He earned well. He had savings. He had life insurance. It was an investment. I was going to wait 5 years, divorce him, take half of everything. But then I got pregnant and that ruined my plan. Her words were venom. Everyone burned me. You told him you didn't want the baby. Of course I didn't, but Marcus became impossible. He changed his will, everything to the baby, so I had to adapt. If Marcus died while I was pregnant, I get the insurance, but the baby would inherit the rest. So the solution was simple. Kill Marcus, have the baby, kill him too. Keep everything. She was confessing everything. Every word recorded, transmitted. The police were listening, but I needed more. You hired Calvin to sabotage the brakes. $2,000. Bargain considering I made $200,000 from the insurance. The best investment of my life. And the baby, your own son, was an obstacle, nothing more. I gave birth alone in a cabin I rented with cash. No one knew I was pregnant. I wore baggy clothes. I avoided people. When he was born, I thought about just abandoning him somewhere. But then I remembered the lake where you and Marcus used to go. It seemed poetic to end everything where your little family tradition started. I felt sick. I felt rage. I felt all the hatred in the world concentrated on the woman standing in front of me. But you failed. I saved him. Yes, that was annoying. But it doesn't matter because now I'm going to finish the job. Where's Elijah? Ellie, I'm not giving him to you. It wasn't a question. And then I saw the weapon. She pulled it from her sweatshirt, small, black, pointed directly at my chest. Last chance. Where's my son? I pressed the panic button 1, 2, 3 times. You're never going to touch him, I said. Her finger moved to the trigger. Everything seemed to move in slow motion. I saw the flash. I heard the shot. I felt something hit my shoulder. Hot burning, I fell backward. And then the boathouse exploded into motion. Doors burst open. Blinding lights, voices yelling, police, drop the weapon, get on the ground now. I saw Sloane turn. I saw the guns pointing at her. I saw that she was surrounded. And for a second, I thought she was going to shoot again. I thought she was going to force them to kill her, but she slowly lowered the weapon. She let it drop to the floor. She raised her hands. 3 officers tackled her, pinned her face down, and handcuffed her. She was screaming insults, threats, but it didn't matter. She was arrested. It was over. Ava ran to me, kneeling by my side. Ellie, stay with me. I'm fine, I managed to say, even though the pain in my shoulder was unbearable. You got her. Tell me you got her. We got her. It's over now. Stay still. The ambulance is on the way. I closed my eyes. It was enough. It was finally over. I woke up in the hospital again, but this time it was different. This time I felt not despair, but relief, peace. My shoulder hurt where the bullet had grazed the muscle, but it had missed the bone. Lucky, the doctor said. 1 inch to the left and it would have been your heart. Deanne was sitting next to me holding Elijah. When I opened my eyes, she smiled. Look who woke up, she said, coming closer. Someone missed you a lot. I took Elijah with my good arm, cradling him against my chest. He smelled of powder and hope. He started making small noises, those tiny sounds bobbies make when they're happy. "Hello, my love," I whispered. "Grandma's fine, everything's fine now." Ava showed up an hour later. She brought flowers and a tired smile. "How do you feel?" "Like someone who's been shot," I said, "but alive. What happened to Sloan?" "Arrested. Charged with first-degree murder for Marcus, attempted homicide for Elijah, attempted homicide for you, plus a laundry list of other crimes, conspiracy, fraud, obstruction of justice. She's going to spend the rest of her life in prison without the possibility of parole." The words were sweet as honey. Justice. Finally, the recording worked perfectly. She confessed everything. Her lawyer tried to plead coercion that you forced her to say those things, but the jury saw the whole video. They saw her pull the gun. Shoot, they had no mercy. 30 minutes of deliberation. Guilty on all counts. In the following months, I recovered slowly. Physical therapy for my shoulder was painful but necessary. Deanne kept coming to help with Elijah when I couldn't lift him with my injured arm. Reverend Thomas brought food. Neighbors I barely knew showed up with casseroles and kind words. "You're a hero," said the lady from the house down the street. "What you did for that baby, risking your life like that." But I didn't feel like a hero. I just felt like a grandmother doing what any grandmother would do, protecting her own. 2 months after Sloane's capture, I had another hearing with the judge. This time it was different. This time the judge was smiling as she reviewed the documents. "Miss Whitlock," she said, "I have reviewed all the reports from the last 6 months, the Child Protective Services visits, Elijah's medical evaluations, the progress reports, and I must say I am impressed." My heart beat fast. Elijah is thriving in your care. He's reaching all his developmental milestones. He is healthy, happy, loved, and you have proven yourself more than capable despite the challenges. "Thank you, Your Honor. Therefore, I am granting full and permanent custody of Elijah to Eleanor Whitlock, effective immediately. Furthermore, given that the biological mother is incarcerated for life and has forfeited all parental rights, I authorize adoption proceedings if you wish to pursue them." Adoption to make him legally mine. Not just his grandmother with custody, but his legal mother. "Yes," I said without hesitation. "Yes, I want to adopt him. Then so it shall be officially. Congratulations." The gavel fell and suddenly all the weight I had been carrying for months lifted. It was official. Elijah was mine. No one could ever take him away again. I walked out of the courthouse with Elijah in my arms. He was 8 months old now, chunky and happy. He smiled, showing 2 tiny teeth. He laughed when I bounced him. He pulled my hair with his chubby hands. Deanne and Reverend Thomas were waiting for me outside. They hugged me. All 3 of us cried tears of joy right there on the courthouse steps. "You did it," Diane said. "Against all odds, you did it." That night, I made a special dinner. Well, as special as it could be with a baby who needed constant attention. I invited Diane and Reverend Thomas. We ate roast chicken and rice. We toasted with apple juice because none of us drank alcohol. To Elijah, Reverend Thomas said, raising his glass, "To his bright future." To Marcus, I said, "who's watching us from somewhere proud of his son." To love, Diane added, "which always conquers evil." We drank, we ate, we laughed. Elijah banged on his high chair and squealed with delight, not understanding but feeling the happiness around him. Months turned into years. Elijah grew, he started walking. At 11 months, his first word was, "Nana." I cried when he said it. At 2, he was running all over the house. At 3, he started preschool. Every milestone was a miracle, every day a gift. I talked to him about Marcus constantly. I showed him photos. I told him stories. "Your daddy was a good man," I told him. "Brave. He loved you even before he met you. He gave his life to protect you." "Daddy hero," Elijah would say in his little voice. "Yes, my love. Daddy was a hero, and you'll grow up to be as good, as brave, as loving as he was." I never told him about Sloan. That would come later when he was older, when he could understand. For now, he just needed to know that he was loved, that he was wanted, that there were people who had fought for him. On Elijah's FTH birthday, we had a party in the backyard. We invited all the neighborhood kids. There were balloons, cake, presents. Elijah ran among his friends, laughing, so full of life, so different from the blue, still baby I had pulled from the lake 5 years ago. Diane sat next to me on the porch watching the celebration. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. "That day," I admitted. How I could have been 5 minutes later, how I could have not looked out the window at that exact moment. How everything could have been different, but it wasn't. You found him. You saved him. It was your destiny. Or Marcus, I said. Sometimes I think he guided my eyes to the lake that day, that he somehow knew I would be there, that he could trust me to protect his son. Perhaps, Diane said, or perhaps you're just an incredibly brave woman who refused to give up. That night, after everyone had left, after Elijah fell asleep, exhausted from all the excitement, I sat alone in the living room. I looked at the photos on the wall. Marcus as a baby, Marcus at his graduation, Marcus on his wedding day, and next to them the new photos. Elijah newborn in the hospital. Elijah taking his first steps. Elijah on his first day of school. 2 generations connected by love, separated by tragedy, united by survival. We did it, Marcus, I whispered to his photo. Your son is safe. He's happy. He's growing up strong and good, just like you wanted. And although I knew he couldn't answer, I felt something. A warmth, a peace, as if he were there, proud, grateful, at rest. Maybe you would have given up if you had been in my place. Maybe you would have thought you were too old, too tired, too broken. Or maybe you would have done exactly the same thing, because that's what love does. It makes you stronger than you ever imagined possible. It makes you fight when everything seems lost. It makes you find hope in the deepest darkness. I don't know what the future holds. I know there will be challenges. I know there will be hard days. I know raising a child at my age won't be easy. But I also know that every day with Elijah is a gift. Every smile, every hug, every I love you, Nana. When I look at him sleeping peacefully in his room, the room that was once his father's, I see not just the child, but the promise I made to my son, the promise I made to myself that terrible day by the lake, the promise to protect, to love, to never give up. Some say it was luck that I was looking out the window at that exact moment. Others say it was fate. Maybe it was a little of both. Maybe it was Marcus guiding me from somewhere beyond our understanding. What I know for sure is that when I saw that suitcase sinking in the lake, when I heard that faint sound coming from inside, when I felt Elijah's tiny heart fighting to keep beating against my chest, I knew nothing would ever be the same. And you know what? I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful for the child sleeping under my roof. I'm grateful for the chance to see Marcus's eyes again, to hear his laughter echoing through the walls of this old house. I'm grateful for the opportunity to love again, to have a purpose, to feel that despite everything I lost, I also gained something precious. Tragedy finds us all. Sooner or later, it knocks on our door when we least expect it. It snatches away the people we love, the dreams we cherished, the security we took for granted. But what do we do next? That is the question that defines who we are. I could have surrendered to grief when Marcus died. I could have shrunk in fear when I saw Sloane throw the suitcase into the lake. I could have said I was too old, too weak, too broken to be a mother again. Instead, I chose to fight. I chose to love. I chose to believe that even in the ashes of the deepest loss, something new can grow. And it did. His name is Elijah. Today he is 5 years old. Tomorrow he will be 6. And someday he will be 20, 30, 40. A complete man with his own dreams, his own loves, maybe his own children. I don't know if I'll be here to see it all. I probably won't be. But I know I planted the seeds. I know I gave him strong roots and wings to fly. I know I told him about his father, about the love Marcus had for him even before he was born, about the courage it took to defend him. And that will have to be enough. Some nights like this one, after the house falls silent, and only the ticking of the old clock on the wall remains, I think about the woman I was before that day by the lake. The woman broken by grief, living among the ghosts of the past, letting the days pass without purpose or hope. I barely recognize her now because the woman I am today, the woman who chases a 5-year-old around the yard, who sticks stick figure drawings on the refrigerator, who kisses scraped knees and scares away monsters from under the bed. That woman is stronger than I ever imagined being. And it all started with a choice. The choice to run toward the lake instead of running away from it. The choice to open that wet suitcase even when my heart screamed with fear about what I might find. The choice to fight for the future when the past felt too heavy to carry. It wasn't an easy choice. It wasn't an easy journey. There were days when my back ached so much from carrying a baby that I could barely stand. There were nights when the relentless crying left me on the verge of tears. There were moments when I wondered if I had made a mistake, if I was being selfish to think I could be a mother again at my age. But then Elijah would smile at me. He would say, "Nana," in that sweet voice. He would fall asleep in my arms, trusting me to keep him safe. And I knew deep in my soul that I hadn't made a mistake. I had done exactly what I was supposed to do. Ava and Diane are still part of our lives. Ava stops by occasionally bringing gifts for Elijah, checking on how we're doing. Diane has become almost an aunt to him. She takes him to the park on Sundays. teaches him about birds and trees, gives him that extra love every child deserves. Reverend Thomas blesses our house every Christmas. He tells me Elijah is living proof that God works in mysterious ways, transforming tragedy into triumph, pain into purpose. And Sloane. She is serving her life sentence without the possibility of parole. She will never again be able to harm Elijah or anyone else. Sometimes I wonder if she thinks about him, if she regrets it, if any spark of maternal love ever existed in that cold heart. But then I remember the look on her face when she threw the suitcase into the lake. And I know the answer. Some people are incapable of love. Sloane was one of them. She only cared about money, freedom, her own desires. She saw Elijah as an obstacle, not the miracle he is. Her loss is my gain. Because every morning I wake up to the sound of little feet running down the hall. My bedroom door opens and Elijah jumps into my bed, his dark hair messy, his eyes, Marcus's eyes, shining with the promise of a new day. "Good morning, Nana," he shouts, throwing his little arms around me. And in that moment, all the pain, all the struggle, all the sacrifice is worth it. In that moment, I know I would do it all over again. I would face Sloane. I would take the shot. I would fight the entire system just to have this child in my life. When people hear our story, they often say, "I'm incredible, brave, extraordinary." But I don't feel that way. I just feel like a grandmother who did what any grandmother would do. Protect her grandson at any cost. The true hero of this story is Marcus, who saw through Sloane's charm, who changed his will to protect his unborn son, who was willing to face a custody battle to keep him safe. Marcus, who paid the ultimate price for his love. And the true miracle is Elijah, who survived against all odds, who fought for every breath in those critical first hours, who brought the light back to this house that was once dark with grief. As for me, I'm just the bridge between father and son, the guardian of their memories, the protector of their future. And it is enough. It is more than enough. Did you like the story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story, with love and respect.